Marara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Burby's 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Good day. Welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. Given his understanding of the 2016 Stabroek Block Agreement between Guyana and an ExxonMobil-led consortium, Kenyan lawyer and anti-corruption legend Professor Patrick Locke Otieno Lumumba believes the deal can only be described as theft. Professor Lumumba made the foregoing comment during an appearance on Kaieteur Radio's The Glenn Lal Show. There he was asked about politicians' constant use of the principle sanctity of contract to avoid renegotiating the Stabroek Block deal. Professor Lumumba was quick to note that the law must not be used in such a way that it legitimizes the illegitimate. The lawyer said it is incumbent upon the people of Guyana to invoke the jurisdiction of their courts, and if they cannot, they can turn to the jurisdiction of other international tribunals to ensure that such an unfavorable contract is nullified. Professor Lumumba said in America, the home of ExxonMobil, such a contract would not have been allowed. He said if unfavorable contracts are left unchallenged, then countries such as Guyana are at risk of falling into the same state of plunder as Nigeria, Gabon, and Angola. And the reluctance of the Guyana Manganese Inc., a subsidiary of Bosai Minerals Group, to repair a dam it damaged some 2 years ago continues to affect residents, especially school children and pensioners living at Lower Pakera, Matthews Ridge, Northwest District. During a trip to the area in May, we learned that the Chinese manganese company made no efforts to fix the dam, despite being instructed to do so by the president. President Ali had last December, during an outreach held in Matthews Ridge, instructed the company to repair the dam after they complained to him. However, when we visited in May, the condition of the dam was still the same. The damage is so severe that it has cut off Lower Pakera from the rest of Matthews Ridge. The road that connected the two communities was completely washed away after the dam used by the Chinese miners broke and eroded to access the community. And although Guyana has been repeatedly advised to keep watch on its ballooning public debt, even as it increases oil production, the government of Guyana believes it has the capacity to take on even more loans thanks to the thriving oil and gas sector. With a tripling of the country's gross domestic product over the past 3 years, thanks to oil production commencing in 2019, the leaders are en route to borrow 6 times the amount it took in 2022 to fund projects in its national budget. This information is clearly outlined in the year's budget documents. Volume 1 of the estimates indicate that the latest loan estimate in 2022 was $14.9 million. This year, government plans to borrow a whopping $90 million. This amounts to an increase of $79.1 million. It also means that the country's loans this year to finance capital expenditure is 6 times greater than the previous year. It is understood that there are 11 creditors the government will be engaged with for financing. And moving on, a pensioner on Monday night reportedly killed a man who allegedly entered his charmer's place and Brickdam Georgetown home without his permission. The dead man has been identified as 31-year-old Christopher Gonzalez, called White Boy, of Independence Boulevard, Georgetown. Police are calling his killing an alleged murder and has named the pensioner and another man as prime suspects. Both the men reportedly sustained injuries during an alleged knife scuffle with the intruder and are presently under police guard at the Georgetown Public Hospital. One of the men, however, is alleging that he was watching television when he heard screams from his bedroom. He got up and went to see what had happened, causing someone to scream, and was reportedly confronted by Gonzalez in the kitchen. He claimed that the man was armed with a knife and stabbed him to the chest. It was at that point that the pensioner arrived and saw him on the ground with Gonzalez over him. The man claimed that he then grabbed a knife from the kitchen. Gonzalez then rushed at him and they ended up in a scuffle, during which he stabbed the alleged intruder several times. Gonzalez fell to the floor and remained motionless, after which the pensioner called an ambulance. You're listening to Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 and 99.5 FM. This is the news at noon. We'll return shortly after the break.
This is GHK Lal inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues. Immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Welcome back. A 21-year-old laborer identified as Hercules John was on Tuesday morning found dead in a metal boat at Etteringbank, Kaieteur River. We learned that John's lifeless body was found lying in the boat while it was docked at one of the landings at Etteringbank. Police were called and, according to investigators, no marks of violence was seen on the man's body. Police believe that the man died of natural causes and has since handed over his body to his family for burial. John was reportedly last seen alive on Monday while drinking high wine with some friends. It is understood that he was fine when he left his friends from the main landing at Etteringbank in a metal boat for his home. It is believed that after docking his boat, the youth might have collapsed and died. Meanwhile, officials of the Ministry of Health and the Region 4 Council turned the sod for the construction of a $66 million health center at Monrepo, East Coast Demerara. The new facility will benefit the residents of Monrepo and neighboring communities. Delivering remarks at the ceremony on Monday, Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony said that the nearest health center is some distance away from Monrepo, hence the initiative to build a center. And Region 3 police on Tuesday found a businessman's stolen money stashed inside a washing machine at Hubo, East Bank, Essequibo, after a suspect confessed. The businessman had reported to police that thieves had broken into his business place at Hubo and stole $2.3 million. One of his employees discovered the break-in when he arrived for work on Tuesday morning. Investigators reviewed footage from security cameras in the building and arrested a 23-year-old suspect. The suspect's home was searched, but police came up empty-handed. After holding out for hours, the man finally told police that they were searching in the wrong place. The suspect led investigators to an old washing machine in his bathroom, and it was there that the cash was found stashed in a black plastic bag. A total of $2.1 million was discovered. Meanwhile, 4 contractors have submitted bids for the construction of a health post at Etteringbank Region 7. The contractors are Seratorium QA Civil Works, Harry Enterprise and Amy's Enterprise. This was disclosed recently at the opening of tenders at the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board. According to the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development, the project is estimated to cost some $61 million. This year, $84.9 billion was set aside for the country's health sector. The sum is aimed at expanding both primary and tertiary healthcare, improving management systems across health facilities, as well as deploying more medical personnel throughout the regions to ensure access to quality healthcare services for all. And autopsies conducted on the remains of the mother and daughter found dead on May 31st at Providence, East Bank, Demerara, were unable to determine the duo's cause of death, police stated on Tuesday. The autopsy, according to police, was done on June 2nd. Upon completion, the cause of death for 38-year-old Petraus Lachman and 13-year-old daughter Gabrielle Ross was listed as undeterminable. According to police, the cause of deaths could not be determined because of the state of decomposition. Lachman and her daughter were found dead after her husband went to check up on them. He had told police that he and the woman had separated last year and he had moved out of the house but continued to pay the rent. And that is time to close things off for today by turning the pages of today's Kaieteur newspaper to page 7, dedicated to being blunt. Why aren't the real criminals being put behind bars? The 15-year-old girl who allegedly set ablaze the Maria Secondary School dormitory, killing 20 children, has been charged with 20 counts of murder. What about those ministers and other state officials who were responsible for the safety of those children? When would we see them in handcuffs? There is also no justice for the rest of the country whose God-given resources are being shipped away daily by foreigners under the watchful eyes of our leaders in the government and the opposition. When will the rest of Guyana get justice for this daily rape of the country? And that brings us to the end of today's News at Noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.
It is Wednesday, June 7th. I'm GHK Lal on Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Welcome to today's edition of the National Outlook. I'm going to bring something from the United States of America that occurred earlier, late last week. There was this huge political fight between the Democrats and the Republicans, more specifically between the White House of Joe Biden and the Republicans in the House of Representatives, which is the lower house of the U.S. Congress, the U.S. Parliament, so to speak. It was over the debt ceiling. The U.S. owes about $31.4 trillion globally, and it's been spending a lot of money on programs, domestic programs, foreign aid programs, et cetera, et cetera. And that's really a tremendous amount of money for any country to owe, including the United States. And so the Republicans are saying, we've got to stop being so cavalier, so reckless in our spending. And so we've got to put a stop. We've got to put a cap to this, or we've got to put a stop to this. And some people were kicking up a stink, some of the congressmen and congresswomen. And so I really thought that this thing is going to fall up, that no debt ceiling bill is going to be passed. It so happens that it passed on Wednesday night into Thursday morning, and it's now gone to the U.S. Senate. So it's the power of compromise. It's of sitting across a table and working together, bringing minds to bear so that solutions can be fleshed out, that conversations can be had, that carries us inch by inch to a better place because it's higher ground. It's a better place than where we are. And that's what happened in the United States, and that's what happens in a mature democracy like the United States. Yes, it's a flawed one, but it's a working one. They've always found ways to work during wars, during times of peace, during times of economic challenge. We here in Guyana, right here, we've got oil, and our government, the PPP government and the PNC opposition, hardly speaks on anything. When we should be a house together, we are a house divided. And this is to our detriment. Fellow Guyanese, sisters and brothers, and I'm not in church, you are my sisters and brothers under the skin. And I'm serious about this. When we speak together, when we put our heads together, we can move mountains. I am confident in that. 2 is better than 1. The 4-eye principle is better than 2-eye. And when it's 8 eyes and 12 eyes, man, we can conquer the world. We've got oil and we are resource rich, and yet we are impoverished. There's a contradiction there, And it just should not be. Instead of one side backing the PPP and another side hanging on to the PNC, we are all better off if, as Guyanese, we are committed to a course of action that helps us to extract from Exxon what it doesn't want to give. Some more royalties, a better share of the profit, less expenses, some taxes, billions in taxes, and the proper insurance coverage, which is an unlimited parent company guarantee. Together, we can win. Apart, we lose. The power of compromise, the common sense of consensus. That's what we have. When are we going to start talking to each other as opposed to talking around each other and talking over each other? I'm GHK Lal on Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Thank you for listening to the National Outlook.
Kaieteur Radio.
Covering Guyana from coast to coast.
Demerara and Essequibo, 99.1 FM.
Berbice, 99.5